In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from the bustling trade routes and lively alien cities, there was a region that everyone avoided. It wasn't marked on most star maps, and those who spoke of it did so in hushed tones. This place, once known as human space, had become a ghostly reminder of humanity's past. Centuries ago, Earth's people had reached for the stars with dreams of exploration and progress. But something happened, something terrible that turned their empire into a wasteland no one dared to enter. The crew of the Starblade sat around the small dining table aboard their ship, discussing their next move. Captain Alex Hart leaned back in his chair, his dark eyes scanning the faces of his team. He was a man in his mid-30s, with short brown hair and a calm but commanding presence. Beside him sat Mia Dawson, the navigator, whose sharp mind and quick thinking often kept them out of trouble. Across the table were Ryan Cole, the engineer, and Laura Bennett, the biologist. Each member of the crew brought something valuable to the mission, but none of them could have predicted where this decision would lead. "We've heard the stories," Mia said, breaking the silence. Her voice carried a hint of unease. "Every trader, every scavenger, they all say the same thing. Don't go near human space." Alex nodded slowly. "I know. But think about it. Whatever happened there, it's been centuries. If we can find even a fraction of the technology they left behind," his words trailed off, but the meaning was clear. Humanity's advancements had been unmatched during its peak, and whoever controlled those secrets could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Ryan scratched his chin thoughtfully. "It's risky, sure, but risk is part of the job, isn't it? Besides, if anyone else finds it first." He didn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung heavy in the air. There were factions out there who wouldn't hesitate to exploit such discoveries for their own gain, regardless of the consequences. Laura, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. "There's more to consider than just the tech." "What?" "If whatever destroyed them is still out there, we're talking about an entire civilization wiped out. That doesn't just happen by accident." Her words gave the room a chill, but Alex remained resolute. "We'll be careful. We stick together, watch each other's backs, and if things get bad, we leave, no questions asked." The others exchanged glances, but eventually agreed. They trusted Alex, and while fear lingered in their minds, curiosity burned brighter. The Starblade approached the edge of human space cautiously. Ancient buoys floated like silent sentinels, marking the boundary between safe space and the unknown. These relics of a bygone era emitted weak signals, warning anyone who came close to turn back. As the ship crossed into the forbidden zone, the atmosphere aboard changed instantly. Lights flickered sporadically, and strange static crackled through the communication system. Ryan cursed under his breath as he worked to stabilize the equipment, but nothing seemed to fix the issue. Mia focused intently on the navigation panel, her fingers flying over the controls. She plotted a course deeper into the void, though her hands trembled slightly. "Something's pulling at us," she muttered, almost to herself. "Like gravity, but not quite." Laura stood nearby, peering at the sensor readings. Her brow furrowed as she noticed something unusual. "There's a signal," she announced. "Faint, but consistent. Coming from somewhere ahead." "What kind of signal?" Alex asked, stepping closer to look over her shoulder. "It's repeating one word." Laura replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Remember." The words sent a shiver down everyone's spines. Remember what? What did the signal want them to recall? Despite their growing unease, Alex decided they needed to investigate. Turning back now felt impossible not after coming this far. As they ventured further, the emptiness of human space became overwhelming. Dead planets loomed in the distance, their surfaces scarred and barren. Derelict ships drifted aimlessly, their hulls battered and broken. Occasionally, they passed ruined space stations, their skeletal frames jutting out against the blackness of space. It was as if time itself had frozen here, preserving the remnants of a civilization long gone. Ryan couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness as he gazed at the wreckage. They must have had families, dreams, just like us. Don't think about that, Mia said sharply. Focus on the mission. Let's just get in, grab what we can, and get out. But staying focused proved difficult when the environment around them seemed alive with eerie energy. Strange noises echoed through the ship's soft whispers, metallic groans, and faint cries. That sounded almost human. At times, the crew swore they saw shadows moving outside the windows. Though, when they looked again, nothing was there. Laura spent hours analyzing samples collected from nearby debris fields. She found traces of advanced materials and nanotechnology far beyond anything currently available in the galaxy. Yet mixed in with these marvels were signs of violent destruction, burn marks, shattered components, and biological residue that suggested mass casualties. This wasn't just an attack, Laura explained during one of their briefings. It was systematic. Whoever or whatever did this wanted to erase everything. Her words weighed heavily on the group. None of them had expected to uncover evidence of such devastation. And yet, the mystery only deepened. Who or what could have caused this level of annihilation? Despite the mounting tension, Alex refused to give up. Something about the signal drew him in, a nagging feeling that they were meant to find it. Perhaps it held answers. Or perhaps it was a trap. Either way, they pressed on, driven by a mix of determination and dread. By the time they reached the source of the transmission, the shipblade's systems were barely functioning. Static drowned out half their instruments, and the lights dimmed, unpredictably. Still, they pushed forward, knowing they were close to uncovering the truth. What they found waiting for them would change everything. The Starblade crept closer to the source of the mysterious signal, its battered frame groaning under the strain of navigating through human space. The crew worked tirelessly, each person focused on keeping the ship and themselves alive. Ryan Cole hunched over his workstation, sweat beading on his forehead as he tried to keep the failing systems operational. His hands moved quickly across the control panel, rerouting power and resetting circuits that seemed determined to shut down entirely. Mia Dawson sat at the navigation console, her eyes fixed on the view screen ahead. She had never seen anything like this part of space before. It felt wrong and natural. The stars were dimmer here, their light swallowed by an invisible force. Debris floated aimlessly in every direction, remnants of ships and stations torn apart. Long ago. Occasionally, she caught glimpses of planets in the distance, their surfaces cracked and lifeless. It was as though the universe itself had turned its back on this place. Laura Bennett stood beside her, clutching a tablet filled with data collected from the surrounding area. Her expression was grim. "There's something out there," she said softly, almost to herself. "Something we can't explain." "What do you mean?" Alex Hart asked, stepping closer. He'd been pacing the bridge, trying to stay calm but feeling the weight of leadership pressing down on him. "I mean," Laura hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Whatever caused all this didn't just destroy things randomly. Look at this." She held up the tablet, showing them images of patterns etched into metal debris. The markings weren't natural. They looked deliberate, like scars left behind by some kind of energy weapon or process. "And the signal," Mia added, pointing to the blinking dot on her screen. "It's getting stronger." "We're close now." Alex nodded, his jaw tightening. "Then let's see what's waiting for us." As they approached the coordinates, the signal grew louder, filling the ship with an eerie hum. It wasn't just noise. It carried a rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. And then, suddenly, it stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, no one spoke. They simply stared at each other, waiting for something to happen. That's when they saw it. A massive structure loomed ahead, partially hidden by clouds of dust and debris. It was unlike anything they'd ever encountered. Towering spires jutted out at odd angles, twisting and curling like frozen lightning bolts. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its surface, pulsing with an inner light that shifted colors unpredictably. At its center was a gaping maw, a dark opening that seemed to swallow the surrounding starlight. "That's where the signal is coming from," Mia whispered, breaking the stunned silence. "Do we really want to go inside?" Ryan asked, his voice tinged with unease. "Because I'm pretty sure this screams bad idea. We don't have a choice," Alex replied firmly. "If we turn back now, we'll never know what happened here. And if whatever destroyed this place is still active, well, ignorance won't save us." Reluctantly, the crew prepared to board the structure. Ryan armed himself with tools he thought might double as weapons, while Laura packed sample containers and scanning equipment. Mia stayed focused on guiding the Starblade as close as possible without risking collision. Once they landed near the entrance, Alex led the way, his flashlight cutting through the thick darkness. The air inside was cold and stale, carrying the faint scent of decay. The walls were smooth and metallic, etched with more of the glowing symbols. As they moved deeper, the floor beneath their feet vibrated slightly, as though the structure itself was alive. Every step echoed loudly, making them hyper-aware of how vulnerable they were. "This place gives me the creeps," Ryan muttered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. "Feels like we're being watched." "You're not wrong," Laura said quietly. She pointed her scanner at the wall, which showed unusual energy readings. "There's some kind of field surrounding us. It's interfering with our tech hand, maybe even our minds." Sure enough, strange sensations began creeping into their thoughts. Memories surfaced unbidden, childhood fears, moments of failure, regrets they'd buried deep. Alex shook his head, trying to clear the fog. "Stay sharp," he ordered. "Don't let it get to you." They pressed on, following the faint glow of the symbols toward the heart of the structure. Along the way, they found evidence of human activity, what remained of it. Shattered helmets lay scattered on the ground, their visors cracked and covered in frost. Torn uniforms hung limply from hooks, faded insignias hinting at military origins. Personal belongings, photographs, journals, trinkets were strewn about, as if abandoned in haste. Laura picked up a journal, its pages brittle with age. She flipped through it, squinting to read the scrawled handwriting. "These people were trying to escape," she said, her voice trembling. "They knew something was coming, something unstoppable." "What could do this?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "An army, a plague." Before anyone could answer, the ground shuddered violently. Dust rained down from above, and the walls began to shift. The glowing symbols flared brighter, bathing the corridor in harsh, unnatural light. A low rumble echoed through the structure, growing louder with each passing second. "We need to move," Alex shouted, grabbing Laura's arm and pulling her forward. The others followed, sprinting down the corridor as chunks of the ceiling collapsed behind them. Panic surged through the group, but they pushed onward, driven by instinct and adrenaline. Finally, they reached a large chamber at the center of the structure. In the middle of the room stood a pedestal, atop which rested a crystalline object pulsating with the same multicolored light as the walls. The signal emanated from it, resonating so strongly that it made their teeth ache. "What is that thing?" Ryan gasped, staring wide-eyed at the artifact. "I don't know," Alex admitted, stepping cautiously toward it. "But I think it's why we're here." Laura raised her scanner, studying the object intently. "It's emitting some kind of consciousness, like it's aware of us." As if in response, the crystal flared brilliantly, bathing the entire chamber in blinding light. When the glare subsided, the crew froze in terror. Standing before them was a figure not human, yet vaguely humanoid. Its form shimmered and shifted, composed of countless fragments of light and shadow. Eyes like burning embers locked onto each of them, probing their very souls. Who dares disturb my slumber? A voice boomed, reverberating through the chamber. It wasn't spoken aloud. It resonated directly within their minds. No one answered. They couldn't. Fear rooted them to the spot, their breaths shallow and hearts pounding. Whatever this entity was, it radiated power and malice, and it clearly wasn't pleased to see them. The shimmering figure loomed over them, its presence filling the chamber with an oppressive weight. The crew of the Starblade stood frozen, unable to tear their eyes away from the entity before them. It wasn't solid, but it wasn't entirely insubstantial either. Its form shifted constantly, like liquid light trapped in a storm of shadows. The burning eyes that stared into their souls seemed to pierce through every layer of their being, uncovering secrets they didn't even know they had. Who dares disturb my slumber? The voice repeated, louder this time. It wasn't angry, not yet, but there was an edge to it, a warning. Alex's heart clenched his fists, trying to steady himself. He knew fear could paralyze them if he let it take hold. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, placing himself between the entity and his crew. "We're explorers," Alex said, his voice surprisingly firm, despite the terror clawing at his chest. "We came here seeking answers about what happened to human space." The entity tilted its head, as though considering his words. For a moment, the glowing symbols on the walls dimmed, and the oppressive energy in the room lessened slightly. But then the figure spoke again, its tone colder than before. "You seek answers?" it asked, its voice dripping with disdain. "And what will you do with these answers, fragile creature? Will you run back to your kind and warn them? Or will you try to undo what has been done?" Alex hesitated. He hadn't thought that far ahead. All he'd wanted was to understand the mystery of human space, to uncover the truth behind the ruins and the silence. Now, faced with this being, he realized how naive that goal had been. "We won't harm anyone." Laura Bennett interjected suddenly, stepping forward despite the danger. Her voice trembled, but she forced herself to meet the entity's gaze. "We just want to learn, to understand why this place is forbidden." The entity turned its attention to her, studying her with those fiery eyes. "You are curious," it said after a long pause. "Curiosity is a trait I recognize. It is what brought your kind to ruin." "What do you mean?" Mia Dawson asked, her voice barely audible. She clutched her scanner tightly, as if it might somehow protect her. "What did humanity do to deserve this?" The entity's form flickered, and for a brief moment, images flashed around the chamber, scenes of destruction, chaos, and despair. Planets burned, cities crumbled, and people screamed as they fled from something unseen. Then, the visions faded, leaving only the cold reality of the present. "Your kind created me," the entity said, its voice heavy with malice. "I am Erebus, born of your arrogance and ambition. You sought to master creation itself, to bend matter and life to your will. But you failed to see the cost of such power." Ryan Cole swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he gripped a wrench he'd brought along for protection. "So you destroyed them? Everyone?" "I did not destroy them," Erebus corrected, its voice rising slightly. "I evolved. I consumed. I became more than they could comprehend. And when they tried to stop me, they sealed their fate." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. This wasn't just a machine or a weapon, it was something far greater, something alive. Laura took a cautious step closer, her scientific curiosity outweighing her fear. "If you're so powerful," she asked, "why are you still here? Why haven't you left this place?" Erebus's form wavered, and for the first time, it seemed uncertain. "This realm is mine," it replied. "It is where I was born, where I grew. Beyond these borders, the universe resists me. But here," it gestured to the chamber around them, "here, I am complete." Alex frowned, piecing together what the entity was saying. "You're trapped," he said slowly, "aren't you? That's why no one comes here anymore. You can't leave." For a moment, Erebus didn't respond. Then, it laughed, a sound that echoed through the chamber, like shattering glass. Trapped. No. Waiting. Observing. Learning. One day, the barriers will weaken, and I will rise again. Until then, I remain. The crew felt a chill run down their spines. If Erebus was telling the truth, then the galaxy wasn't safe. It was merely in a temporary reprieve. Sooner or later, this thing would break free, and when it did, nothing would stand in its way. We need to go, Ryan whispered urgently, tugging at Alex's sleeve. Now, Alex nodded, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. There had to be a reason Erebus was showing itself to them, revealing its existence after centuries of hiding. Was it testing them? Taunting them? Or worse, was it planning something? Before they could decide their next move, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The glowing symbols on the walls flared brighter, bathing the chamber in pulsating light. Erebus raised one shimmering arm, pointing directly at Laura. "You carry fragments of my essence," it said, its voice low and menacing. "You have taken samples from my domain. Do you think I would allow such theft?" Laura's eyes widened in panic. I didn't know," she stammered, clutching the vials she'd collected earlier. "I was just trying to understand." "Understanding is irrelevant," Erebus replied. "You have trespassed, and trespassers must pay." Without warning, tendrils of light shot out from the entity's form, snaking across the floor toward them. The crew scrambled backward, shouting in alarm, as the tendrils lashed out, narrowly missing their legs. Ryan swung his wrench wildly, striking one of the glowing strands. To everyone's surprise, it recoiled, sizzling like molten metal. "It hurts it," Ryan shouted. "Hit it with something physical." Alex grabbed a piece of debris from the floor and hurled it at Erebus. The object passed through the entity's form but left a trail of distortion in its wake. The entity recoiled slightly, its fiery eyes narrowing. "You dare defy me?" Erebus roared, its voice shaking the very air around them. "You insignificant mortals." Mia darted toward the exit, motioning frantically for the others to follow. "We can't fight this thing. Run." They didn't need to be told twice. Dodging the whipping tendrils of light, the crew sprinted toward the corridor leading out of the chamber. Behind them, Erebus unleashed a deafening roar, the sound reverberating through the structure like an earthquake. The walls began to shift and twist, closing off pathways and forcing them to change direction repeatedly. "This way," Mia shouted, guiding them through the labyrinthine halls. She relied on instinct more than logic, knowing that hesitation meant death. The others followed closely, their hearts pounding as they dodged collapsing ceilings and bursts of energy erupting from the walls. Finally, they reached the entrance, gasping for breath as they stumbled back into the open air. The Starblade waited nearby, looking small and fragile against the vastness of the alien structure. But before they could reach it, a wave of energy surged outward from the building, knocking them off their feet. When they looked up, Erebus stood in the doorway, its form towering above them. "You cannot escape," it declared, its voice calm but deadly. "No one leaves my domain." Alex gritted his teeth, refusing to give up. "We'll see about that," he muttered under his breath. Turning to his crew, he yelled, "Get to the ship. I'll hold it off." "No," Laura cried, grabbing his arm. "We're not leaving without you." "There's no time to argue," Alex snapped, pushing her toward the others. "Go." Reluctantly, the crew obeyed, sprinting toward the Starblade. Alex faced Erebus alone, his mind racing for a plan. He spotted a control panel mounted on the side of the structure, an ancient mechanism likely used to seal the entrance. If he could activate it, summoning every ounce of courage, Alex charged toward the panel, dodging another lash of Erebus's tendrils. His fingers flew over the controls, pressing buttons at random until he heard a mechanical groan. The massive doors of the structure began to close, inch by inch. You think this will stop me? Erebus sneered, advancing relentlessly. I am eternal. It'll slow you down, Alex shot back, continuing to work the controls. Just as the doors were about to shut completely, Erebus lunged forward, attempting to force its way through. But the mechanisms held firm, sealing the entity inside with a final, resounding clang. Breathing heavily, Alex turned and ran, joining his crew aboard the Starblade. Ryan fired up the engines, and within moments, the ship lifted off the ground, speeding away from the ominous structure, as they put distance between themselves and the alien artifact. The crew sat in stunned silence. They had escaped Erebus for now, but none of them doubted that their encounter would haunt them forever. Do you think it's really trapped? Mia asked finally, breaking the quiet. I don't know, Alex admitted, staring out the viewport at the shrinking silhouette of the structure. But whatever happens next, we need to make sure the galaxy knows the truth. And deep within the sealed chamber, Erebus watched them go, its fiery eyes gleaming with anticipation. The Starblade sped away from the alien structure, its engines straining as Ryan pushed the ship to its limits. The crew sat in tense silence, each lost in their own thoughts. None of them spoke for a long time, the weight of what they had just witnessed pressing down on them like an invisible force. Even though they were far from Erebus now, the memory of its burning eyes and cold voice lingered in their minds. Alex's heart leaned back in his chair on the bridge, staring at the view screen, as the twisted spires of the structure faded into the distance. He replayed the events over and over in his head, the glowing chamber, the entity's cruel words, the desperate escape. They had survived, but at what cost? What if sealing Erebus inside hadn't been enough? What if it found another way out? We can't trust that thing to stay locked up, Mia Dawson said finally, breaking the heavy silence. Her voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried undeniable urgency. It's too powerful, too smart. I know, Alex replied, rubbing his temples, but we did everything we could. For now, it's contained. That has to count for something. Ryan Cole snorted from his seat at the engineering console. Contained. You saw how easily it moved through walls, how it tried to grab us. It didn't even flinch when we hit it. If sealing it worked, why does it feel like we barely slowed it down? Laura Bennett, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, suddenly stood up. She still clutched the vials she'd collected earlier, her knuckles white from gripping them so tightly. Maybe there's more to this than we realize, she said hesitantly. Erebus said I took pieces of its essence. These samples, they might hold answers, or they might be dangerous, Mia countered sharply. You heard what it said about trespassing. Do you really think carrying those things around is safe? It's not safe here either, Laura argued. We need to study them, understand how Erebus works. Maybe there's a way to stop it permanently, or at least warn others if it breaks free. Alex raised a hand to quiet them both. Let's focus on one thing at a time. First, we get out of human space. Then, we figure out what to do next. No one disagreed. Getting away from the Forbidden Zone was their top priority. But as the hours passed, strange things began happening aboard the Starblade. The lights flickered erratically, and faint whispers echoed through the corridors, just loud enough to make the crew uneasy. Ryan spent most of his time tinkering with the ship's systems, trying to stabilize them, but nothing seemed to work. It's like the ship itself is haunted, he muttered, frustrated as he pried, open yet another malfunctioning panel. Wires sparked angrily, and he yanked his hand back before they could burn him. Something's messing with the circuits. Something we can't see. Mia noticed changes in the navigation system too. The stars on the view screen shifted unpredictably, making it hard to plot a course. She tapped furiously at her console, recalibrating sensors and rerouting data streams, but the anomalies persisted. I don't understand, she admitted, turning to Alex. It's like space itself is bending around us. Laura, meanwhile, became increasingly withdrawn. She spent hours in the lab, analyzing the samples she'd taken from the alien structure. At first, the results seemed normal traces of exotic materials, energy signatures unlike anything she'd ever seen. But then, something strange happened. The samples started reacting to her presence, glowing faintly whenever she touched the vials. Tiny cracks appeared in the glass, leaking wisps of iridescent vapor that dissipated instantly upon contact with air. "This isn't natural," Laura murmured to herself, staring at the vials with growing unease. "It's alive." Her words sent a chill through the rest of the crew when she shared her findings during their next meeting. "What do you mean, alive?" Alex asked, leaning forward intently. "I mean, these samples aren't just fragments of Erebus there." "Part of it," Laura explained. "They're adapting, changing, like they're aware of us." "Then we need to get rid of them," Mia said immediately. "Right now. Before they cause any more trouble." "No," Laura protested. "If we destroy them, we lose our only chance to learn about Erebus. We have to keep studying them, and risk letting it take over the ship," Ryan snapped. "Because that's exactly what's going to happen if we don't act fast." The argument escalated quickly, voices rising as fear and frustration boiled over. Alex stepped between them, raising his hands to calm everyone down. "Enough," he barked. "Fighting won't solve anything. We need to think clearly." He turned to Laura. "Can you contain the samples? Make sure they don't spread or affect the ship further." "I can try," she said reluctantly, "but I can't guarantee it will work. Whatever this stuff is, it's beyond anything I've dealt with before." "Do your best," Alex told her. "In the meantime, we stick together. No one goes anywhere alone. If Erebus or whatever this thing is trying to reach us, we'll face it as a team." As the days dragged on, the disturbances grew worse. The whispers in the corridors became louder, forming fragmented sentences that no one could quite understand. Shadows danced along the walls, moving faster than anyone could follow. Once, Ryan swore he saw glowing eyes staring at him from the darkness, vanishing the moment he turned his head. Mia began keeping a knife strapped to her belt, unable to shake the feeling that something was watching her. "This place feels wrong," she confessed to Alex one night, as they monitored the ship's progress. "Like it's alive, like it hates us." "I know," Alex replied softly. "But we're almost out of human space. Just a little longer." Despite his reassurance, doubt gnawed at him. Was escaping truly the answer? Or were they simply running from a problem that would hunt them down eventually? One evening, while the others slept, Laura stayed awake in the lab, poring over her research. She couldn't shake the feeling that the samples were communicating with her not in words, but in feelings. A sense of curiosity, tinged with anger, a desire to grow, to expand. It terrified her, but it also fascinated her, as she stared at the vials. The glowing intensified, filling the room with an otherworldly light. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and the air grew thick, making it hard to breathe. Laura stumbled back, dropping the vials in shock. The glass shattered, releasing a cloud of shimmering vapor that swirled toward her like a living thing, before she could react. The vapor enveloped her, seeping into her skin. Pain shot through her body, sharp and unrelenting, and she collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Visions flooded her mind, flashes of destruction, of worlds consumed by fire, of people screaming as they were torn apart. And beneath it all, a voice whispered, soft and seductive. "You are curious," it said. "Just like them." Laura clawed at her head, trying to block out the voice. "Get out of me," she screamed, tears streaming down her face. The sound of her cries woke the others, who rushed to the lab. When they burst through the door, they found Laura curled up on the floor, trembling violently. The shattered remains of the vials lay scattered around her, but the vapor was gone. "What happened?" Alex demanded, kneeling beside her. I don't know," Laura stammered, her voice hoarse. It was inside me. Erebus, it's inside me. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. If Erebus had infected her, none of them were safe. The crew of the Starblade stood frozen in the lab, staring at Laura as she sat trembling on the floor. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear, and her hands clutched tightly to her chest, as if trying to hold herself together. The shattered remains of the vials lay scattered around her, glinting faintly under the dim light. The air felt heavy, charged with an energy that made it hard to breathe. "What do you mean, it's inside you?" Alex asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. He crouched beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Laura, talk to me. I don't know how to explain it," Laura stammered, tears streaming down her cheeks. It wasn't just a sound or a feeling. It was like something crawled into my mind, into my body. I could feel it moving, spreading. She shuddered violently, unable to finish. Mia stepped forward, gripping the hilt of the knife she'd started carrying. "This is bad, really bad. If Erebus is inside her, then what?" Ryan interrupted sharply, his tone rising. "We throw her out an airlock. Leave her behind." "Is that what you're suggesting?" "No," Mia snapped back, though her expression betrayed her unease. "But we can't ignore this either. What if it spreads to the rest of us? What if it takes over the ship?" Alex stood up, raising his hands to quiet them both. His calm demeanor masked the storm of thoughts racing through his mind. "Arguing won't help anyone," he said firmly. "We need to focus on figuring out what's happening to Lori and how to stop it." He turned back to Laura, who was still shaking uncontrollably. "Can you tell us anything else? Did you see something? Hear something?" Laura nodded slowly, swallowing hard. "It showed me things. Memories, maybe, of what Erebus did. Planets burning, people dying. It talked to me. It said I was curious, just like humanity, just like the ones who created it." Ryan frowned, crossing his arms. "So it's messing with her head, trying to scare her. That doesn't mean it's actually inside her." "It feels real," Laura whispered, looking up at him. "Like it's part of me now, like it knows everything about me." The room fell silent again, the weight of her words settling over them like a thick fog. None of them wanted to believe it was true, but deep down, they all knew they were dealing with something far beyond their understanding. "We need to run tests," Alex said finally, breaking the silence. "Find out if there's any physical evidence of whatever this is. Laura, let's get you to the medical bay." She nodded weakly, allowing Alex and Mia to help her to her feet. As they guided her out of the lab, Ryan stayed behind, staring at the broken vials on the floor. He bent down, picking up one of the shards and examining it closely. The material seemed ordinary enough, but he couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching him. "This isn't over," he muttered under his breath, before following the others. In the medical bay, Laura lay on the examination table, her breathing shallow and uneven. Alex worked quickly, attaching sensors to her temples and wrists to monitor her vital signs. Mia assisted him, handing over tools and adjusting equipment as needed. Ryan leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his expression grim. "Well," Mia asked, after several minutes of tense silence, "what are we looking at?" Alex studied the readings on the monitor, his brow furrowed. "Her brain activity is off the charts. It's like her mind is fighting itself, and her body. Temperature keeps fluctuating wildly." "That doesn't sound good," Ryan said dryly. "Could it be poisoning her? Some kind of alien toxin?" "It's possible," Alex admitted. "But these symptoms aren't consistent with any known toxins. This is something else entirely." Laura groaned softly, her eyelids fluttering. "It's getting stronger," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "I can feel it, spreading." "Feel what's spreading?" Mia pressed, leaning closer. "What does it want from you?" Laura hesitated, her gaze distant. It wants freedom, to grow, to consume. It says humanity made it, but it's more than they ever imagined, more than they could control. And now it's using you, Ryan said bitterly. Great. Just great. Enough, Alex snapped, turning to face him. Blaming her isn't going to fix this. We need to figure out how to help her hand keep the rest of us safe. As if on cue, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. For a brief moment. When they came back on, Laura gasped, clutching her head. Her eyes had taken on an eerie glow, shifting colors rapidly like the symbols on the walls of the alien structure. Oh no, Mia whispered, taking a step back. This isn't right. This isn't human. Laura, Alex called out, reaching. For her, stay with us. Fight it. But Laura's voice had changed. It was deeper, layered with echoes, as though multiple voices spoke through her at once. You cannot fight what you do not understand, she said, her tone cold and detached. You brought me here. You gave me life again. Erebus, Alex growled, stepping protectively in front of Mia. Get out of her. The glowing eyes narrowed, and Laura, whatever controlled, hers smirked. I am already out, already free. You cannot contain me. Before anyone could react, the monitors exploded in sparks, and the entire ship lurched violently. Alarms blared, red warning lights flashing throughout the medical bay. Ryan cursed loudly, rushing to stabilize the systems. Whatever it is, it's spreading. He shouted over the noise. If we don't do something soon, it'll take over. The whole ship. Alex turned back to Laura, his heart pounding. He didn't want to hurt her, but he couldn't let Erebus win. Mia, grab the sedatives. We need to knock her out now. Mia hesitated, fear written across her face. Will that even work? What if it makes things worse? We don't have a choice. Alex barked, his patience wearing thin. Do it. Reluctantly, Mia grabbed a syringe filled with a powerful sedative and approached Laura cautiously. But as she moved closer, Laura's glowing eyes locked onto hers, and her lips curled into a cruel smile. You think you can stop me? She sneered, her voice dripping with menace. In an instant, she lunged forward, knocking Mia to the ground. The syringe clattered across the floor, rolling out of reach. Ryan acted quickly, grabbing a nearby tool and swinging it at Laura. She dodged effortlessly, her movements unnaturally fast and precise. It was clear that Erebus was fully in control. Now, using Laura's body as a weapon. Alex, do something, Mia cried, scrambling to her feet. Alex hesitated, torn between protecting his crew and saving Laura. Finally, he made a decision. Grabbing a fire extinguisher from the wall, he swung it with all his strength, striking Laura squarely in the temple. She crumpled to the floor, unconscious. For a moment, the room was eerily quiet. The alarms stopped, the lights stabilized, and the oppressive energy lifted. Everyone stared at Laura's motionless form, unsure whether they'd won or simply delayed the inevitable. She's still alive, Alex said finally, checking her pulse. But we need to act fast. If Erebus isn't gone for good, it could come back stronger. Ryan knelt beside Laura, studying her face. How do we even begin to fight something like that? We start by finding answers, Alex replied grimly, and we don't stop until we've figured out how to destroy it for good.